We are privileged to have Dr. Anita Bhaduri, consultant histopathologist and head of the Department of Lab Medicine Medical, PD Hinduja Hospital and Medical Research Center, Mumbai. And she is president of IAP India Division. And ma'am is MD FIC PAT, and as I have told, she is president of IAP. And Dr. Bhaduri has been practicing histopathology in the multi-speciality tertiary care setup for last 40 years. Her hospital lab was the first in Southeast Asia to receive CAP accreditation in 2006 and subsequently NABL in 2011. She has been awarded the British Council Fellowship and trained extensively in US and UK and Australia. And her areas of specialization are breast and gynae pathology, lab accreditation, digital pathology, and she is an excellent orator and she receives many awards. And we are privileged to hear you, and her talk is on NABL and CAP inspection preparedness and histopathology perspective. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Barnali, for this very elaborate introduction. And I'm not sure whether, I'm really capable of qualifying for all those adjectives that you've used. However, I can try to do my best today, and we'll see how it goes. So what I'm trying to actually say is that, quality has come a little late to histopathology, and it was well known for both clinical chemistries, microbiology, and hematology. And I think that it is something that you do voluntarily to go in for quality and auditing yourself, and that should be the practice for everybody. Much before our lab went into audits, we were actually doing proficiency testing for many, many years with the College of American Pathologists. So my point is that, the lab preparation for any accreditation audit starts much before, with the simple thought that you would like to audit what you're doing and what are your results in the laboratory. So one of the questions, and Dr. Ingle has actually covered a lot of what I would also be wanting to say, but I would talk about it from the histopathology perspective. And a lot of people say, why do you need this accreditation? Is because you need to have these national and international standards to say that what the practice in your lab is a good practice and it's keeping pace with the evolving updates and the lab requirements. And it means that it meets both your technical component as well as the management system that is necessary to deliver technically valid results consistently and not as a once in a while event. The same thing holds true even for the CAP, and the CAP is a little different from NABL because it has a checklist approach, and it also has complementary educational resources to a great extent for the labs that go in for CAP accreditation. It also has a dashboard where you can evaluate your performance with your peers. So it helps you much more to see how you are performing throughout the year and not just at particular times when you are either doing an internal or an external audit. And both are based on the 15189 program, and the same kind of criteria are applied to both, whether it is NABL or CAP. So in histopathology, how do we define quality? Of course, the well-known definition is that it is the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfills the requirements. But the real test of quality is the effect that it has on patient outcome. And there is nothing which exemplifies this better than histopathology, where you actually have patient records kept for 10 years. And at any point in time, you have to look back and see how the patient has done on the diagnosis that you've given and on the treatment options that you have set. So everything else other than the patient outcome is a surrogate marker of the quality of your laboratory. The quality management system, as described by Dr. Pramod very nicely, says it focuses on how to do things rather than why. And the path of workflow, similarly in histopathology, is also based on the pre-analytical variables, the analytical as well as the post-analytical, and they all follow the same ISO and the CLSI standards. The goal of this quality management system is to have a continuous improvement of the lab process. Now, we all know that there is no lab that is zero error. So it can never be totally error-free. But the thing is that you have a high-quality lab that detects its errors and prevents them from recurring, so that you don't repeatedly have the same error, and also to minimize the newer errors from developing. The accredited lab samples can be relied upon to produce an accurate result. However, you need much more than just giving an accurate result. So the essentials of accreditation as exemplified is you need the quality management program, you need to have your quality policy in place, you need to have a chemical hygiene plan, and that is really important in laboratories that deal with all infective material and with chemicals, especially in histopathology, a document control process, the competency assessment for all levels of your staff, and that the highest complexity testing is performed in histopathology or surgical pathology, and therefore it is imperative that they assess themselves according to a standard format which is acceptable and should at least have earned a minimum qualification and a percentage which is a pass percentage. So earlier, when histopathology used to be practiced in the 70s and 80s, we could even employ a lab technologist who had passed the 10th class or the 12th board exams, but now that is not the case. And we need to have people who have a degree in laboratory sciences and who have done the lab medical technology courses. The test method validation and verification, and of course the same things like a lab information system and the lab director, and all the qualifications of the director have to be defined. So the various blocks that have been put forward are the same for the organization, for the personnel, the equipment that you have in the section, purchase and inventory, process management, which is all your validations, internal QCs, PTs, documentations, information management, investigation of all non-conformities in the audits, use of quality indicators, management review, internal audits, continual improvement in the services, and customer focus, which is really very important even in histopathology, and the environment and the facilities that are available in the section. So this includes ergonomics, space, ventilation, and environmental conditions as well. Now, documentation control is one which is often found to be at fault in many of the audits, and it is the management of all the paper or the electronic documents, which includes your policies, procedures, as well as the forms, which may be the requisition form or your consent forms, or any other forms that are reporting forms and all that you use, whether online or in hard copy format. And a written document control system outlines how all documents, whether they are revised or approved, are utilized, retained, and if any of those has to be changed, then discontinued, then it must go into the discontinued documents file. And all the documents should be current, they should be accurate, and they should be easily available on the workbench. The personnel who are working in the lab should have read the policies and documents, should be familiar with it. It's not that when you are going in for the audit, then they're searching for those documents as to where it's kept. And if you have just prepared them and those are not the ones that you are using, then obviously then you will find that they are floundering about it. The people should be knowledgeable and should know the changes that have been made. And these policies and procedures have to have an authorization by a person who's authorized to make the changes, at least annually or every 2 years. And the discontinued or retired documents are to be kept in a retired document file for a minimum of 2 years from the date of discontinuation. As regards the chemical hygiene plan, it's very important that you have an MSDS, which is your safety data sheets on all the chemicals. And this is especially important because a lot of carcinogenic as well as, teratogenic reagents are used in histopathology, and a lot of our workforce is women employees, and therefore it is critical that we know how the reagents affect them. Therefore, there is regular monitoring of the vapors of formalin and xylene is imperative for any audit or accreditation that you're going for. A proper label on all chemical containers, you must know where to put them in the laboratory. The big containers that have dangerous chemicals cannot be hoisted up on the topmost shelves. They have to be in fire safety cabinets. There has to be a training program on interpreting the labels and the MSDS sheets. And all the lab employees have the right to know the hazards that are associated with the reagents and the substances that they are handling in their job. Every chemical used in the lab has to be evaluated for its carcinogenic potential, reproductive, and acute toxicities. Coming to specific errors that you find in histopathology when you audit yourself, the very common ones are a defective report. Now, this defective report doesn't mean only the report. It can be a specimen that has been lost. It could have been lost in transport. It could have been lost in processing. It could have been lost by any other way, like not kept safely, discarded. A sample could be inadequate or non-representative. You may have performed the wrong testing on it. You could have given the wrong size of the tumor. And sometimes the reports can be a whole lot of garbage and uninterpretable. Misidentification of the specimen is very common. Specimen defects, specimens that are inappropriate for reporting, and this is really common in lymph nodes and breast if they have been sitting on the bench for some time without the proper fixatives. Misinterpretation, again, very common organ, that is the breast, and is a major cause of litigation. Then typographic errors. If you're wanting to say that there is malignancy, then it's being typed as no malignancy, or if there is no malignancy, then it's being typed as malignancy or malignant cell scenes, or one diagnosis going into another diagnosis, those kind of typographic errors. Report delivery errors, where the report has not reached the right patient at the right time, and safety issues of both the patient as well as the staff working in the laboratory, and that again is a very critical factor. So there were two major studies that were published, and they were published about 6 years apart. And in both those studies, the most common pre-analytical problem was the labeling of the specimen, which was wrongly identified. The analytical, of course, was the diagnostic misinterpretation, and the post-analytical, which is the defective reports, as I just elaborated. And you can see that there has been not much change in the type of errors that are seen in surgical pathology. 6 years down the line, very much they seem to be the same. So the pre-analytic errors related to the grossing of the sample, the identification, the sampling, the use of the appropriate fixatives, preservation of specimens, test selections, transport, and your daily internal QC. There has to be important information that should be given to the users of the lab, and the users of the lab are not just the patients, they're also the doctors, they're also the nurses and the nursing homes and the other hospitals who send the specimens and the samples to you. So the requisition forms should be available for all the test menu which you have in the laboratory, the correct instructions for collections of the sample, the correct instructions for taking an informed consent of the patient, and the special handling instructions. Then warm and cold ischemia times are really important, and these terms are applicable because the patient's organs are removed from the body and sent for testing. And the warm ischemia is when the blood supply is cut off and the organ is removed, and the cold ischemia is from the time it is removed from the body to the time it is put into the appropriate fixative, which most commonly is 10% buffered formalin. And these are very critical and have been defined by CAP as being less than 1 hour. So this is what needs to be ensured. Then there has to be a defined sample rejection criteria as it is for other blood and other body fluids. Interpretation and advice is an important component of any histopathology report. Confidentiality as well as a procedure for complaint redressal. These specimen identification errors were very common both in the samples collected in the outpatient clinic as well as in the operating rooms. And the various ones were like the laterality was incorrect, the left and the right was not written correctly or not mentioned at all. The biopsy site was not given. The patient's name was something else, and it was transcribed as half the name and not the complete name. Then the site of the biopsy is not mentioned. Some containers were empty because they got some mucoid material or some such scanty tissue, which then later could not be seen or processed. And many of the containers or the slides directly made smears are not even labeled properly and sent. So to evaluate all these errors, there was a Q-probe study which was done in USA in 136 labs. And their experience was not much different from what we see in India. And they found the same mislabeled specimens as well as blocks and slides. And therefore, in 2016, guidelines were issued by the College of American Pathologists for uniform labeling of blocks and slides in surgical pathology. And according to this, they should ensure that all the blocks and slides are unambiguously labeled using 2 patient identifiers, which means that in addition to the patient's name, as is seen over here, you also have a unique identifier, which in our hospital is the patient's HH number. And then you can put your lab accession number or your other things, and they should be legible. So a printed label, of course, is much better than a handwritten one. And the specimen type has to be defined. Is it a surgical biopsy specimen? Is it a fluid which is cytology or an autopsy specimen? And multiple specimens may be obtained. Then there is a system of numbering them by international standards. And all the blocks and slides in a particular case should be linked together so that when you have a lab information system, then there is no discrepancy and you can even go back and retrieve the previous biopsy slides. So this is the way we label the slides in our hospital, and we have a unique lab accession number. There's the patient's HH number, that's the hospital, and then there's the full name of the patient that comes. And then this is like the A1 block. So we know that the A1 slide belongs to this block. And then there can be subsequent blocks like maybe, B, C or so on and so forth. Now, as regards formalin, we try to reuse formalin, and there's a lot of industry pressure also, which says that, you can actually recycle your formalin and recycle your xylene. We have never tried it out in our laboratory, but I think there are some labs using it, but it should always be a fresh solution because a lot of things depends on your fixation, and the penetration of formalin is not a lot. It penetrates tissues very slowly. Therefore, it's good to have good quality formalin as the primary fixative. The same thing is true for the other reagents like your xylene, alcohols. Because in the tissue processor, where the tissue is processed, you must change the reagents after every 200 capsules or cassettes, depending on your workload. It cannot be that you will change them on a particular day of the week because your workload will be different on every day of the week. Similar thing applies to microtome blades. To ensure good quality sections, that you have to use the number of blocks that you are cutting with that blade and not the number of days that you have used the blade. As regards the duration of fixation, the minimum criteria are defined like 6 hours for breast biopsies and 24 to 48 hours for the big excisions. And like I'm showing you one of the forms from the older days where the tissue removal time, which we have included in our requisition forms, was not included. So this is again a deficiency, and we need to know the ischemia time, especially for biomarker assessment. And here we have the receptors, which are very critical, and these cannot be, these need that cold ischemia and warm ischemia to be documented, as well as the minimum fixation, so that you can evaluate them correctly. And this picture actually shows you when the fixation is inappropriate, then how it gets affected, and a positive can be reported as negative. In the analytical, you can have overcalls, undercalls, misclassification, incomplete reports with missing information. And the reason for this diagnostic error very commonly is lack of a clinical correlation or a wrong clinical history. And of course, there are others like workload, human fallibility, and time constraints, which can affect the diagnostic errors in analytical. And clinical history is extremely important. This is one lab where without the history, you cannot do a blind diagnosis on any sample that you get. And there is no bravado in trying to do it also. And most malpractice claims are in failure to obtain relevant information. So we are using formatted report templates. We use a case review pre-sign out on selected biopsies. We have proficiency and competency testing for our staff. We have multidisciplinary team meetings, which help a lot. And we measure the completeness of all our cancer reports. In the post-analytic phase, I just mentioned that your transcription and formatting should be correct. The report should be verified and only then authorized for release. Storage of samples, wet tissues, and blocks have all defined times by both NABL as well as CAP. And you follow the same guidelines, and they have to be kept because you need a look back period in histopathology. Then you have to define, every lab needs to define their turnaround times. Amended reports is a very important criteria for quality, and you will see that they are equally distributed between the pre-analytical and the post-analyticals. And the pre-analytical is very important even for histopathology. And there are various reasons for the discordance and for amending the reports, like wrong embedding, undecalcified tissue, or delayed submission, then Grastat not functioning, reagents outdated and all, which have been rectified by most labs by now. As regards diagnostic disagreement, there are certain diagnoses that are difficult, and the patient will always benefit from a second opinion. And this should be encouraged in oncopathology, where tumors really need a lot of expensive treatment, and where the treatment is completely different in different types. So proficiency testing is, I have already alluded to that in extension. And the very important, which is my last kind of important qualification, is that a physician satisfaction survey must be carried out for all histopathology labs. The perception of the lab is a good measure of your quality. And who is the user? The patient as well as the clinician. Sometimes there can be unrealistic expectations, but it helps you in getting things that you want. And one of the surveys that we did in 2017 showed most of our users satisfied overall, but as regards the turnaround times, they were not very happy. So they said that they wanted, and most surgeons are known to be impatient and want the report as if yesterday. So it gave us a better perspective, to increase our manpower and to add more equipment so that we could improve on the turnaround times. So these are the various lab monitors and quality indicators that I have alluded to. And you can identify and control all your non-conformities by following the same procedures that Dr. Ingle has reported. And the strategy for the best test performance interpretation is you first have standardized practices, monitor and maintain them to create an atmosphere of quality, and that will lead to accuracy and reproducibility of the tests. And I end by saying that quality is all about teamwork, and this is my team at Hinduja, and we believe in this policy that quality is for benefits to everyone. And I thank Dr. Barnali and Kaho for inviting me to this very interesting program today. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, ma'am, for that excellent talk. Actually, it's a very difficult area to get accredited in most laboratories as a histopathology, they would say. and taking us
Yes.
through those critical points and those important areas that need to be focused and what need to be looked at much more critically was very, very, very loosely touched upon by you, ma'am. Thank you very much.